Luke, I am your father.
Bro.
I know it's not the line. It's misquoted. We're going to talk about that.
This guy.
Card. I'm Phil.
I'm Chuck.
And today we're discussing the best Star Wars movie,
hands down,
The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, 100%.
There's no debate. I mean, there's a debate, but there's not a debate. It's The Empire Strikes Back.
It's The Empire. I mean, there's no question.
I have spoken.
It's Empire.
Yeah.
This movie, of course, starts off on the ice planet of Hoth.
Yeah, it's a bit cold there.
It is, and it reaffirms Lucas deciding that every planet has one climate.
Yeah, I mean, in the Star Wars galaxy, which was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's different kind of things happen there.
There's a lava planet. There's a
ice planet.
An ice
desert planet.
There's a water planet.
I went
there's
to Sand World, and things like that happen there.
So we get yet another climate. We get Hoth, the ice planet, and of course this is where the rebels are hiding out.
That's it. The rebels are there.
And Vader finds them via one of these things.
An Imperial probe droid.
Well, sure, and and the Force, of course, which is understated, but that's how he knows, and we know they're there. It's not just intuition.
All right. Tell me what you think it is.
Is it a star?
It is a star.
Right, he gets the sense from obviously he sees the image from the droid, the probe droid, but he's able to parlay that into using the Force.
He goes,
kind of
"Nap,
that's it.
Yeah, that's the one." But while we're on Hoth, we have a few different things that happen that are
tour there.
Yeah, there it is. Galactic Tours. There you go. While we're on Hoth, we see a couple new species introduced, one of which is the Wampa.
Yep.
Which we didn't really see much of in the original film.
You see a little bit. You see him coming at Luke and then the arm fall gets chopped off, and that's all you see in the original version of the movie. George, every time he's re-released these films, has altered them.
Again?
Not again. Not again, man. Is that possible?
Every single time. And they've been released many, many times. So even for the 4K UHD versions that came out, there were further alterations to them.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
When we watch this movie and I'm thinking in my head, we talk about a lot when we talk about sci-fi films, especially ones that are older, is how did they age? Well, this almost doesn't really apply to Star Wars because it hasn't really aged. It's been redone. The VFX have been redone, and when they 100%. Even made these films in 4K, they redid and made a 4K DI for the movie, so it's mastered in 4K now.
Yeah, well, and it's not just that. It makes Star Wars a living, breathing entity.
Which is what George wanted, really.
Exactly. So the films do change, but the Wampa scene in particular was interesting because it was written to cover up something that happened in the real world.
Yeah, Mark Hamill got in a pretty bad car accident.
Yes. And had a scar on his face.
That's why he looks different. Between what he looked like in the first movie and what he looks like in Empire, it's noticeable.
It's a noticeable difference for sure. So they had to write in some sort of injury. The Wampa got added, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The other race that we see on Hoth is the Tauntaun.
I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
Exactly. Well, and that particular scene has been parodied in so many things.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Family Guy, of course, being probably the most popular and the biggest one, but it's been throughout, I mean, countless media.
Sure, and and even as a kid, they had the Tauntaun action figure play set that you could put Luke's figure in there, right? It was like it was cut open by the lightsaber. So that's a very famous. All the kids wanted that toy set, and for me, that's why it sticks out to me, because that was something that when I was 6 years old when this movie came out,
for sure.
So it was something that I wanted, and it seemed so. Therefore, I always remember it in the films.
Yeah, I was -2 when this came out, so
Smart ass!
it is what it is. The one thing that sticks with me with Hoth is, in terms of my growing up and my development, was the tie-in Star Wars games that came out with like the Super Nintendo and the N64, and those were always the hardest levels because you had to wrangle an AT-AT.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember playing those as well, and it was like, oh my god,
It's so freaking difficult.
so hard.
But either way,
Well, and the base on Hoth is someplace where everybody knows your name.
yeah, absolutely. John Ratzenberger plays one of the rebel troops
That gives Princess Leia the bad news about the guys being out in the cold.
It's just a weird little thing. So years before he was in every Pixar film, he was in another Disney film, which wasn't a Disney film at the time.
Right. And before, I think Cheers may have been on at this time.
It may have.
I don't recall. We didn't look that up.
We'll have to look that up, and we'll put something up here.
Yeah,
It
we'll
says
ding
if
us
we're
or
right
we'll
or
ding
wrong.
us or buzz us. One of the two.
Yeah,
whatever. We'll figure it out.
Either way, it's a fun little note that
Yeah.
he's actually in there on Hoth. But moving away from Hoth, of course, they escape.
Yep.
Well, almost. And that leads them into an asteroid field.
Well, and when they escape, Hoth is one of the first instances of Vader always losing that ship.
Yeah, he just cannot
It's like, oh
capture
God,
the
that
Millennium
ship.
Falcon.
He just must go home at night and take off his helmet.
Oh, you must smell like feet wrapped in leathery burnt bacon.
Just be pissed that he can't ever get this damn ship.
He really does. And that passes on along the bloodline, because later on, Kylo Ren's the exact same way. He's like, blow that ship out of the sky. It's the Millennium Falcon, man. You just can't get it.
She's the fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy.
And one of those instances is, of course, in the asteroid field, where we get the other iconic. There's so many iconic
There's
lines.
tons.
We're going to get to
iconic lines, iconic scenes. I mean, Empire's chock full of them.
It really is.
It's the best. It's not just the best Star Wars movie. It's the best directed.
Yeah.
It wasn't directed by George. No offense, George, but it was directed by Erwin Kershner.
Yep.
It's the best written by Kaz Dan. So the dialogue's the best. The direction's the best. The pace is phenomenal in this movie. There's never a dull moment. It continues on and on.
You're not bored.
Yeah, we watched it today. It's probably the millionth time I've seen it.
Yeah, same here.
If you actually counted them, it's probably over 100 that I've seen this movie. It's my favorite Star Wars movie. It's one of my favorite movies, period.
Yeah.
Such a well-done film in all those areas.
Yeah.
And it really stands apart from the other Star Wars movies.
Certainly. I agree.
Another big part of that, of why it's the best, is because, and we'll get to it, but the bad guys win.
Yeah. Well, it's a downer. It's a different thing that you're not going to see in most franchises.
No, mostly the
bad guys win.
It was
weird.
emulated in Avengers and Infinity War.
Well, yeah, I should prece that by saying, to this point in cinema history,
oh, you don't see it at all.
You don't see it.
And then
the good guys win. That's just how it works.
And then Empire is the benchmark for that, right? So then you have other film franchises have copied that mold, notably Avengers and Infinity War.
Yeah. Oh,
Thanos
my God,
wins.
yeah.
And that's because
that's the end of the movie. He
right.
blinks out half of existence.
And that's because of movies like The Empire Strikes Back.
100%. It absolutely is. But getting back to the asteroid field, of course, the iconic line there is never tell me the odds.
Right. Yeah.
3PO is notorious for giving the odds. And
he's a droid. That's what he does.
Han doesn't like that.
Well, no, because
that comes up in Solo, too.
Han's a gambler. Han's rides by the seat of his pants, goes by gut. He's an intuition guy. He's not a looking at the data.
Yeah, well, exactly. So those two definitely butt heads all the time.
Sir, might I suggest that you...
can wait.
And it came in A New Hope, sure, but in Empire really hits. I mean,
Well,
they're at odds.
In other stuff that's not canon anymore, it's more in the Legendary series, but there's implication that Han has a little bit of Force inside of him, a little Force user, because that's
Sure.
also what makes him such a great pilot, is he's in tune with his surroundings. And
Yeah.
relying on the intuition, you could say, is maybe he's not a strong Force user like Leia or Luke,
No.
but it's a little bit of that intuition that helps guide him to places.
Certainly. Well, and that is an interesting point as well, because Han is the only non-force sensitive character in the original trilogy that does wield a lightsaber.
Yeah.
And that's during the Tauntaun scene.
Yeah, sure. You've got to cut that tauntaun open, and Luke's got it right there.
Yeah. I mean, might as well, if you got it there, you're going to use
Well,
that.
you got to. It's life and death.
Yeah,
right?
you're not going to pull out a knife.
That's not a knife.
If you're going to use a lightsaber,
Yeah,
that's
and I've never
freaking
even
cool.
seen Han have a knife, just the lightsaber that Luke had.
Exactly. It's a really cool thing.
For sure.
Moving on from that, one thing that has changed throughout the years, we talked about, Star Wars being a living entity, is the fact that the Emperor in the newer versions of this movie is played by Ian McDiarmid, although it was not
Right.
in the original.
Well, as
theatrical
part of the
cut.
retconning. So we can
Yeah.
talk about a bunch of the retcon things now. So as Phil said, originally the Emperor was not Ian McDiarmid, but then when he was cast in Return of the Jedi as Ian McDiarmid, when the first time George made a change, he made then that hologram that Vader communes with, made it Ian McDiarmid. And Ian McDiarmid, of course, was the Emperor in the prequels, and in the Clone Wars cartoon he voiced him sometimes, not all the time. So going forth, he's continued to be, and he was in the sequel trilogy as well.
Right.
So that his was retconned back in, along with like how the Wampa that had happened as well.
Sure.
Empire has the least changes, but throughout the whole series there was a bunch. But there are some things in retconning that they couldn't do, or at least doesn't line up all the way.
Absolutely right. And I think the biggest example of that is R2-D2.
Sure.
R2 does not know who Yoda is.
Right. And according to the canon now, he knows who Yoda is. But
Yeah.
of course we got to give him a break, because this was the second movie film.
Yeah, of course.
None of that stuff had even been thought of or written at that time.
Right.
That R2 would know who Yoda is. Just like when Obi-Wan is like, oh, that's our last hope.
That boy is our last hope.
No, there is another.
I mean, Obi-Wan in the prequels delivered the kids.
Yeah, he was in the room, so
Yeah.
obviously he knows.
We just watched
That's an issue,
series where Obi-Wan smuggled Leia as a bossy 9-year-old out in his trench coat.
But he forgot about her just for that scene.
Which, of course, we know we're just poking a little fun.
Yeah, that's
just some of the retconning that they couldn't do that, most people aren't going to point out. We're going to, because we're nerds. But most people aren't going to think about that or even have an issue with it.
For me, it's not an issue.
No,
I mean,
it's
we're,
not.
We're watching
just,
these films as like...
It's just us analyzing it after watching it for, 178 times.
Yeah, exactly.
We're like,
you're going to notice crap like
poke
that.
little holes in it, but that's what nerds do. You guys know you do that.
Where are they?
I think they're talking about us. No way.
We all do that who are nerds and watching this kind of stuff.
Exactly right. But what this film also does is introduce the character of Master Yoda.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And that was, Yoda took everything by storm. I mean, he spoke funny. Frank Oz voiced him in, was the main puppeteer. Speaking in riddles and inverted. It was just, when he finds Yoda and you're like, what is this little green dude?
Yeah.
And then, he pulls
he's comical.
He's comical.
Totally
he's
comical
He's
at first.
testing Luke from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Right? And then he's like, I cannot train him.
He has no patience.
Like his father.
Was I any different when you taught me?
He's not ready.
Yoda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a great intro to Yoda, and then Yoda becomes a major part of the canon going forward.
Of course, yes. Especially within the prequels, the Clone Wars, all of that stuff. I mean, he's He's the guy. He's the main
Well,
guy.
he is the main of the Jedi Council. He's pretty much the highest of the Order, although there's, a couple of his equal level on the Jedi Council with Mace Windu and things like that.
Yeah.
Yoda is who everyone looks to. He's the oldest amongst them. He's either trained everyone or trained their master.
Right.
I mean, Obi-Wan says, when you train me, further as they move along, Qui-Gon Jinn trained Obi-Wan, but really Yoda trains everybody.
Well, and again, that's another one of those things that they couldn't really retcon.
No.
But it still holds truth.
From a certain point of view.
And Obi-Wan would be proud of that.
Yeah, happy to say that. He points that out all the time.
Absolutely. So that, of course, brings us, and you mentioned earlier, the dialogue in this movie is probably the best in the entire franchise.
I wouldn't even say probably.
And it's because of all those iconic lines, and Yoda's dialogue in particular it's hard hitting.
Yeah.
He has so many iconic lines, but the one that always stuck with me and my favorite line in all of Star Wars is, "No, try not."
Do or do not. There is no try.
Knock that shit off. We got a bus to catch. Jedi, bitch.
Just really cool stuff, but he's dropping wisdom the entire time.
Yeah.
Luminous beams are we, not this crude matter. And
Small am I?
Yeah, judge me by my size, do you? I mean,
you should not.
There's so much good stuff, and Frank Oz brings a lot to that character. He's silly, but he is commanding.
Well, he's giving Luke a crash course on Jedi knighthood.
Yeah,
because he doesn't have a choice.
Well, and you mentioned as we were watching it, like, man, the training period used to be like 20 years. Now it's like 2 weeks.
Well, I mean, he doesn't have a choice, right? And obviously, again, retconning, that's something that at the time, Lucas didn't know if he's going to make those first 3 movies. Lucas didn't know there'd be this gigantic empire that was Star Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, yes, the first movie was super successful, but, who knows what was going to come from that. And at the time, that was all plausible. Okay, you got trained, now go do your thing.
Yeah.
All the things of the Chosen One had not been written yet. And then ultimately, even when those first 3 movies were made, the prequels were made, and then they later made it the Chosen One's actually not Vader. It was Luke.
Is it the Chosen One? He is. He will avenge us.
And at one time, it was going to be Leia. So they've done a lot of, it's been very fluid, right, in all of that. So yeah, you watch those things, and of course we're like, oh yeah, blah blah blah. But introducing that character of Yoda, as Phil said, and he knows. I mean, Yoda in his power would knew who Luke was, knew he was coming, knew what he was up against.
Of course,
knew he was going to leave.
Yeah.
So he had to get as much of that as he could in.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of Luke leaving, where does he go? He goes to Bespin.
Well, he has a
Cloud
vision,
City.
right? With Yoda communing with Yoda and the Force. He has a vision of his friends being hurt and potentially killed. Yoda couldn't tell whether or not they were going to die.
Will they die?
Difficult to see. Always in motion is the future.
And Luke's like, I got to go check it out.
I'm not sure that he couldn't tell. I mean, he's Yoda. You know what I mean? Maybe he was trying to keep Luke there. It's hard to say.
I don't know. I mean, I think there is precedent in the canon of not the future being unclear.
Sure.
I think there's multiple paths.
Tons of precedent for that. Yeah.
Would they have died had Luke not gone to Bespin? That's a debate. That's you could argue it either way.
Sure.
Right? They certainly, you could say, would have been better off because Luke wouldn't have brought all of the Empire. Well, but Luke didn't bring the Empire.
No, the Empire was
following Han, trying to lure Luke in.
Right.
Now, if Luke doesn't come in, does anything change? I don't know. I think that Vader still lets Boba Fett take Han. Han still gets frozen.
Yeah.
Maybe Han doesn't get frozen. Maybe that might be the only thing. Maybe Han doesn't get frozen because he didn't have to test it out for Luke. Maybe he just lets Boba take him.
Sure.
But that did set a precedent for that. That's how Mandalorians take their prey in, because Mando certainly freezes damn near everybody.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
It's kind of like the go-to thing, yeah.
Yeah, so, that's kind of an odd little canon setting or baseline setting.
Sure.
For how bounty hunters of the Mandalorian bounty, because let's remember also, for as much as everyone loves the Mandalorian, this is where it comes from.
Oh, yeah.
Boba Fett's first appearances as an animated in the Christmas special before Empire comes out, right, in 1979.
Thank you.
You are alone?
I have 2 droids. We've come in search of the ship that crashed near here.
Maybe I can help you. I am Boba Fett.
He was in, like, parades and stuff for the original movie.
Well, yeah, because he was a concept. He was a
concept
stormtrooper, I think, actually, at first.
Yeah.
But his first appearance in live action is in The Empire Strikes Back, which they have also retconned with Tamara Morrison's voice.
Yes.
Instead of the original Boba Fett, who's now actually passed away, the guy who played him.
Unfortunately.
So it's very interesting that when you look at it in that way, that, as huge, the biggest thing in Star Wars now is The Mandalorian with Grogu. Without Boba Fett,
there is
Mando doesn't exist.
Yeah, well, the entire Mandalorian
is nothing.
Race, it's nothing
without Boba.
Exactly. So huge impact.
Yeah.
Again, that spans years and years and years.
Yeah.
And The Empire Strikes Back is that.
Yes.
It's rippled across time. Lando, of course, is introduced as well.
Yep.
In the Cloud
Billy
City
D.
investment.
Williams.
Yes. Billy D, good old Billy D. He shows up sipping a Colt 45. No, he doesn't. But
oh yeah,
it wouldn't have surprised me if he did. But he's smooth talking.
You look absolutely beautiful. You truly belong here with us among the clouds.
Thank you.
He's awesome. I mean, he's a cool guy, but he's not really a cool guy.
And for
to
you
start
kids
out.
that don't know, back in the day after Billy D. Williams, he was popular, but he got really elevated in popularity amongst more widely known through The Empire Strikes Back as anyone who starred in Star Wars did.
Yeah.
He was starring in an ad. He did a run for Colt 45.
For Colt 45,
he was their spokesman.
Oh, yeah. I didn't pull that out of thin air.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a thing. Yeah. Absolutely. So he betrays Han and Leia when they come to the city of Bespin for shelter because the Empire arrived before.
Because Boba Fett tracked.
And that was it. Boba Fett tracked Han. Han was slick. Boba Fett was slicker.
Yeah, he knew what he was doing. He goes and flies right behind him.
He did indeed. So all of this, of course, leads Luke to Bespin, where he finally has his first showdown with Vader.
Yeah.
Too cool.
Oh,
because
it's an iconic scene when Vader's standing at the top of the stairs. All the lights, you just have the stairs are lit and the steps, and the ambient lighting in the background, and he's talking to him and his voice fills the room.
Oh.
The Force is with you, young Skywalker. But you are not a Jedi yet.
Well,
It's
James
so
Earl
great.
Jones. I mean, you gotta love listening to his
Yeah.
voice. But what really struck me, it has struck me for a long time, is the fact that Luke is battling Vader with the lightsaber that
Vader built.
Your father wanted you to have this when you were old enough.
What is it?
Your father's lightsaber. This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight.
Yeah.
That doesn't really hit you till later if when
Yeah.
you go back and watch all the movies and whatever. But in the first time you watch Empire, if nothing else exists, it's just he's got his lightsaber and whatever. But it really weighs heavy when you realize no, that was his.
Well, yeah, when Vader drops the bomb on him.
No, I am your father.
That
bombshell
was a
Boom.
bomb on all Star Wars fans, right? I saw
Yeah.
this in the theater when I was 6 years old, right? Everybody was talking about it. I mean, as a 6-year-old, I didn't have the kind of thoughts on it like I do now.
Well, sure.
Upon reviews, but it was a very. And the cast didn't know. right? They were given different lines when they were to go into filming, and because Lucas wanted the reaction, he wanted that, you know, what?
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 It cannot be. No.
This is bullshit.
I mean, they told Mark Hamill right before Vader said it.
Right before they shot the scene.
And he was like, what?
Oh, yeah.
He didn't have time to really process. He's just going to react to it.
Yeah,
And
he's like, is that true? He goes, well, we're going to play it like it's true.
Yeah.
Like, you search your feelings, and yeah.
Yeah, and they told, and I remember, you see, there's interviews with James Earl Jones, and when they told him, he's like, what?
No way.
No.
I thought he was lying.
Yeah, I thought he was lying. So it's a huge bombshell, and the most misquoted line
it really
ever.
is. And I was kidding in the cold open. I know what the line is. No, I am your father. That's the line. But it is misquoted constantly. Everybody says, Luke, I am your father. But that ain't the line. It's no.
You told me enough.
He
told me you killed him.
Yeah.
No, I am your father.
That's it right there. So, but that, again, it's such an iconic scene that it's been parodied in so many things, and each parody gets it completely wrong.
And the underlying subtext of all of that scene, right, is that with the Rule of Two and the Sith, Vader knows that the Emperor wants Luke to replace him. He knows that because he replaced somebody himself, right?
Of course.
So Vader, he tells Luke,
Join me, and together we can rule the galaxy as father and son.
He intends to
we're
overthrow.
going to take over the Emperor.
Yep.
I'm going to be the Emperor, and you be my son. You'll be me.
Yeah.
So there's that also
100%, yeah.
underlying struggle there of what's going on, and Luke's like, no, I don't want any of it.
Right. Which, I mean, eventually comes to fruition later on where, you know, Vader is able to actually overthrow the Emperor, but not for the reasons that he thought he would.
Exactly.
So,
Return of the Jedi, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that.
No.
We're talking about Empire.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, Vader sees that.
Yes.
And the Emperor, when he mentions Luke to the Emperor goes, oh, yeah, it'd be a good idea. And I think Vader hesitates a bit and goes, oh, wait a minute.
You done messed up, Aaron!
Yeah, whoops.
Right. Obviously, that's a huge bombshell of the entire thing.
And frankly, the trilogy at the time, there was no bigger bombshell. I mean, it's in Jedi, the secret that Leia is his sister, which is alluded to. You know, there's foreshadowing in Empire a couple times. Number one, when Luke goes into the cave and fights Vader and he chops his head off and it's his face.
Yeah.
Right. You know, the implication you're thinking at the time before you hear the bombshell is that, oh, if you head down the path, you'll just be like him and turn more machine. It's actually not that, oh, yeah, that's your dad.
Right.
Right. And then Yoda implies, and he goes, oh, that was our boy, was our last hope. And Obi-Wan says to them, he goes, no, there is another. Well, that's Leia.
Right. Well, of course. And we all know that now. But
you didn't know it when you first watch it.
The other interesting thing about that is when Luke is hanging off the bottom of Bespin,
he calls to Leia.
He calls for Ben first, and then with no answer to Ben, calls to Leia.
Leia. We've got to go back.
And Leia responds.
And she hears him.
She hears him because she is force sensitive, because she is the other hope.
She's the twin.
Yeah.
She's his other twin. So they are connected.
They're connected that way.
And they realize it subconsciously, just not consciously.
Exactly.
Clearly they realize it subconsciously.
Right. Which calls into question a few of their other actions throughout the film.
Oh, yeah, earlier in the film.
That is some pretty fucked up shit.
They really are the worst twins ever.
But we're not going to talk about that. That's been talked to death.
I mean,
you know, whatever.
Scruffy looking nerf herders were mad about it.
Yeah, who's scruffy looking? Either way, I think we can sum it up by saying that this Empire is the best Star Wars film.
100%.
Period. I mean, there's 11 of them now.
Yeah, it's still the best.
And it's still number one.
Yeah.
And will remain number one. And it's mostly because of, as you said, it's so well written. The dialogue is
the
excellent.
Directing is top notch. The pace is nonstop. It's a excellent, great movie.
And the bad guys win. So it's a change of
often.
pace. It doesn't happen very often. It's surprising. It's depressing. It's awesome. It's
everything.
It's a wonderful film.
Yep.
Chuck, you got anything else?
Nope.
We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I would like to remind you to check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. We are out there. Remember, likes are free.
Yeah, right there.
Join us in the comments. Let us know what you think. And please remember to share us with all your nerd friends so they can join in the party as well. And with that, we will say,
what's on your nerd card?